Hello, I'm Jeremy Rivera, your unscripted podcast host. I'm here with Isaac Justesen of Patient Partners, right?
That's right.
Tell me what it is that you do here, Isaac, at Patient Partners.
So I'm the founder and CEO of Patient Partners, and we specialize in helping healthcare practices grow. We work with predominantly like physical therapy practices, chiropractic clinics, massage therapists, some counselors, things like that. But nevertheless, we help healthcare practices show up better online, improve their SEO, their Google ads, their web design, and ultimately drive new patients to them, really.
Helpful content, medic update, your money and your life. Healthcare is definitely a protected niche when it comes to Google's perspective and algorithms and what it's done over time. How long have you been doing this, and have you seen changes or adaptations that are specific to the health industry, health business niche?
It's absolutely very well protected. And I've been doing this for coming up on 5 years now. About 5 years ago, I started the agency. And, but there's absolutely been changes. We don't work with a lot of med spas, but a couple of our clinics have sort of a med spa arm of their business. They've got sort of a couple of people that do that off on the side. And there are all kinds of things that Google will just simply not let you advertise. Anything around, sort of slightly more speculative services, anything around PRP, stuff like this is certainly just a hard no from Google, which is, I suppose fair enough. Then it's on us to find other ways to market those services. Fortunately, things like physical therapy and counseling are, generally pretty safe. It's just, you just have to be careful in some of the wording. But for the most part, we haven't, had nearly as much trouble with those types of services as, some of the other ones that are pretty common at like things like med spas, just for example.
I work with a couple of different local businesses, like a home construction company. What's the difference between doing SEO for a home construction company, building stuff versus, counseling? What is it in your strategy and execution that you're looking at as unique or different?
So for the local SEO, first of all, as for any service business, local service business, obviously we want to rank locally, but that'll be the case for anyone, whether they're a counselor or a home, a construction company that only serves a particular area, or, a plumber, or, whatever for that matter. So that part's not particularly unique. I think the really unique part comes around the actual copywriting and how we articulate sort of what a clinic does, the value of their service. At the end of the day, the mechanisms of local SEO are relatively similar, whether you're trying to rank a plumber or you're trying to rank a chiropractor. At the end of the day, it's still Google and Google Maps and ranking in the map pack and things like that. But what's really different is, how we talk about the service. And part of the reason we've niched down is because we can actually talk to our clients and these clinic owners on just a slightly deeper level than just marketing in general. We actually understand a little bit more about their industry. And so, but from an actual, the actual mechanics of local SEO, I would say there's a lot of similarity between a contractor or construction company like your client and a counselor like ours.
It seems to me that one of those specialty areas is kind of knowing what the regulations are, and putting out material that can help people that have to negotiate or navigate through those regulations. I did some B2B consulting for an oxygen monitor manufacturer, and a lot of their marketing comes from, putting out information so that consumers, their customers, can navigate, oh, hey, these are the regs you have to comply with. It's kind of the same thing in some of the healthcare niches of putting out there, hey, these are the industry standards, these are the rules and regulations around, these services. So, helping people become aware of that can be its own form of marketing.
That's a good point. And each province or each state will have their own sort of rules around different language that you are and are not allowed to use. You can't make comparative statements. You can't use, you have to be careful about using the word specialized or claiming you're an expert in something. And so all of those types of regulations around language and advertising, and there's a surprising amount of variation across the country.
What are some of your go-to playbooks when you're, a small business in the healthcare space? What are you looking at for low-hanging fruit when people are coming on board?
We always look at the business profile. I think it's still one of those things that a lot of companies maybe set up when they first start and then kind of forget about. And so we still see this all the time where there's just tons of opportunity there. They haven't set up their categories correctly. They don't have services listed in their business profile. Really, really simple things. Conversion tracking is another, although it's not necessarily, about improving visibility or driving more traffic. It's so important to be able to tell what part of your marketing is working and what's actually driving results. And seldom is that set up correctly as well. So it's always one of the first things we do. And it's just sort of an easy way to get some wins in. And, but those are two big ones.
What are some of the marketing pitfalls that you've seen SMBs that you've worked with have fallen in and you've offered to kind of ladder up?
The pitfalls, that's a good one. I have seen companies spend big dollars on just boosting Meta Instagram posts and their Facebook posts, thinking that's what's going to drive more, new customers in the door. And obviously there's a place for boosting posts, in certain contexts, but, really that's not the most effective use of what are usually pretty limited marketing dollars. A lot of these clinics, they don't have big budgets to throw around at marketing. And so when you're spending you've got $1,000 a month to spend on marketing and a good chunk of it is going to just boosting posts. It's, always one of the first things I tell them, hey, we gotta change this up.
What is the mix of channels that you're looking at and recommending for these businesses? I know, boosting posts might not be the best strategy, but, where are you looking to get eyeballs versus, show up for LLM citations versus, your basic, SEO fundamentals, getting in some local directories and things like that? What's your mix in the first 6 months when somebody comes on? Like, how do you process that?
So for us, we have different programs depending on, what the clinic needs. For sure, the biggest channels are SEO and Google Ads. Those are the most common things clinics come to us for. But AI visibility is becoming increasingly important, and we do have some clients on Meta ads. But I think one of the more underrated marketing channels for clinics is community building, is getting out there, getting involved in the community. Go to a marathon and set up a booth, tape some ankles or, stuff like that. Go sponsor a youth sports team in the area and get out there and get involved. When they come to us, it's usually for SEO and for marketing and for website and, Google Ads and local SEO. And those are our sort of go-to channels, right? Especially in the first 6 months, get that sort of foundation laid. And then we can look at the more advanced strategies. But in terms of a channel that I think can be really important for clinics. I think community building is often overlooked.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got a program at my agency to set up community cleanups, and whether remote or, they'll send one or two people out, I'll set the date, but I'll harvest so much digital fruit of Eventbrite has an API to ChatGPT. Google has a special SERP view for events. And so if you're listing that you're doing a community, you can actually get in Reddit for your community Reddit by posting, hey, doing a community cleanup, who can come out, sponsored by, thanks to JoJo's Skincare, and that's one of the few times I've seen fly, like blatantly putting someone's brand out there is when they're running a community cleanup. Still get the upvotes. I've done it with the brand name in the title, with the brand name out of the title, and the brand name in the title actually got more upvotes for it may have been just specific to that community, but I'm going to hit that button over and over.
That's brilliant. And Reddit is typically so sensitive to any sort of promotion or anything like that. They typically, can smell that from a mile away. And so the fact that you were able to actually get positive engagement while still finding some, a way to get a brand mention and talk about the company. I love that. I love that idea.
Even snuck a link into the event description on Reddit. Also Facebook, there's always in Cookville, it's Hip Cookville, and then there's Hipper Cookville and Hippest Cookville, like the knockoff, like Parcheesi versions. But if you go and post it on there, it's just one of those things, that's great at driving engagement. So looking for, those opportunities. I did an interview, I think it was Bone Dry Roofing. They have a trailer it just has their logo on the sides, and they'll do movies in the park, set up a projector and do free movies in the park, once or twice a month. No hard pushing, just logos on the side of the trailer, show up in the community, and, they'll have somebody out there and they've gotten roofs. They've gotten, legit business just by showing up in the community. So I love that play.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love it. And, where I'm from, it's called Victoria, and the local group is called Keep Victoria Boring. And you see these kinds of events in there.
Oh, one big hint is if you just go and do the trash cleanup without advertising, make a pile of the trash and take the picture. There's subreddits where you can post hey, look at my trash haul. Clean this up. So that's another tactic too.
Genius.
Tell me a little bit more about some of your evolving marketing strategy as we get our hands on more and more technology that's accelerating our skills, accelerating the speed to market for us to execute on these things. Where's the balance point for you and your team of integrating new capabilities, holding back when a client, wakes up on Tuesday and sends you 15 pages from ChatGPT of this brainwave of they've replaced their intelligence with ChatGPT, and they feel really this is such, GPT said it, this must be a good strategy, but it's not wisdom. As Brett Sklar, my last interview, said, AI gives us a second brain, a third brain, but that's not the same as having the experience or wisdom of how to use it.
I think that's a good point. And it's becoming a little more common these days, where we recently had a client, for instance, just ask us, could you just redo the entire site with Claude? And, we had to push back on that around, just the efficacy of that. So the wisdom of that approach. For me, these days we're using AI a fair bit to increase our efficiency, obviously with a heavy human hand involved in there. But I like to see AI as sort of additive. All right. I don't want to replace, automate all of our client work. I want to be able to deliver more value because what previously took us 2 hours now takes us an hour. And so that means we can just do more of it. One really cool tool that I've been using quite a bit recently is called Victor, and it's just a really smart AI that connects other different platforms. It's sort of a little bit like OpenClaw and those types of tools, but it's very simple to use, and it's been a real game changer as far as our own AI tech stack.
One thing, I interviewed Jake Melendi of Ignavito, and they're using it to speed up response time. And, they did a study where 68% of businesses, they measured 1,800 or so businesses, 68% never replied in the first 24 hours. And he realized, oh, hey, there's a market opportunity there. And having worked with small businesses and having tried to get services from small businesses, it definitely seems that's part of the stack that can be easily optimized. Some type of AI responder to text messages, having immediate surfacing, trying to get calls back as short a time as possible. Because if I'm on my phone, I'm thinking I'm going to go to a location. I think Google did release these stats that 70-80% of people who go to any business in a community are looking on their phone either immediately before they're driving or while they're driving en route. So if you miss that window where they're searching or where they're trying to book something right away, trying to find immediate availability, you're leaving cash on the table every time.
Absolutely. And I don't think the AI phone answering is that good yet. I don't think we're there yet. And I certainly don't recommend to our clients that they replace their front desk team with, an AI tool. But I do look forward to the day that it is good enough because, you talk about the contact forms don't get responded to. You would be blown away at how few phone calls get answered, right? It's just people are calling these clinics and nobody's picking up the phone, and the missed revenue opportunity there. And so if there was like a really good phone call answering, AI that could take in the questions, book people an appointment, stuff like this, I feel like that would be such a game changer for tons of local businesses.
I hate to oversell it. He was a previous guest, and his stack did look pretty good, Ignavito. So I'll send you the URL afterwards. It'll be in the show notes, but it did. I have tried one before. It was called Lead Truffle. But their game was to have it go to voicemail, but immediately answer with a text message. And the text chatbot was really good, and they used a real phone number, and then had a really smooth function to pass that off to a live client. But there is a decent tool. I was checking it out at Ignavito, so that might be a solution for anybody who's listening, and maybe for you to check out afterwards.
Cool, man. Thank you. Yeah, I'll take a look.
But I'm curious, are there any other pain points that you've been able to solve either within your own organization or pain point with a particular client where you spotted, oh, hey, this specific headache, let's get rid of that. Let's use, Claude or GPT and smooth this wrinkle out.
I think one of the really easy ones that come to mind is just responding to reviews. It's one of those things that it's perhaps a little bit lower on the priority list for a lot of front desk teams that are busy. And so we've been able to set up a system that uses AI to just respond to the review. And it says, maybe you leave a review for a clinic and, mention, oh, Isaac helped me with my shoulder pain or whatever. And the AI, sees your name and sees what is in your review and is able to come up with a pretty good response to that. And then the other thing we were able to do is layer in some tone and, is it a little more friendly? Is it a little more clinical? Is it a little more professional? Is it a little more casual? And kind of come up with some nuance there. I think that was just a really simple way you could use AI. And oftentimes, we're not looking to replace. I don't ever really want to replace sort of the patient interaction, but if we can find simple ways to save time, that's usually where we can see some really good value with the AI.
Yeah, I mean, smoothing out and understanding, what are some paperwork workflows? Is there any, submission of documents that you can make easier? Even just querying, Claude, ChatGPT. Okay, for this, what are some of the paperwork headaches and how can we, find a portal for that or find a tool for that or make a tool where they can submit this? Can we augment the site where, it pulls and checks, insurance for X, Y, or Z or surfaces different things. Like all those are part of the ecosystem for getting the job done, but any friction you can remove, yeah, 100% every time.
And, I'm seeing all kinds of tools pop up, like AI charting notes, where that's a big part of the workload for clinicians. But then it takes those charting notes, and if your patient has, one particular type of insurance, well, they'll have that insurance provider will have sort of their own process for, well, how do you submit this? And so the AI is taking the charting notes and then putting it into the format that the insurance provider is looking for. And so there's all kinds of, that's obviously not exactly marketing related, but all kinds of really neat ways that people are using, AI and some of these tools to just speed things up.
If you could talk to small business owners and just get them to stop doing one thing, what would that one thing be?
Let's see. What would that one thing be? I think it would be stop using generic Canva templates on your Instagram. Nobody likes them. I don't know why that's the first thing that came to mind. But, if you're going to be doing social, put a little extra effort in there. In fact, I would rather just have you take a photo of your team or the trash you've picked up or whatever and put that out there. But the generic Canva templates, we see a lot of clinics do those. And every time I see them, I cringe a little bit.
What do you think is going to be the shape of local SEO in the next few years? It seems to me that out of the ecosystems in search, local SEO seems to be here to stay with the fewest disruptions. What's your take on the SEO and marketing side for SMBs?
Yeah, I agree because, obviously the AI mode in Google is they're really pushing that, and that's going to really impact a lot of websites. But for local searches, Google Maps is still, the best way for Google to serve up options. And so I think the business profile, the Google business profile, is becoming even more important. The map, if you can be in the map pack, it can make such a massive difference for a local business. And so that's where I really think local SEO is moving towards, and just a more weight and more importance on the business profile and perhaps a little bit less on the website. Obviously, they're still related, but I think there's a massive opportunity there. For sure, ChatGPT and Gemini and Perplexity, yes, people are asking those about local businesses as well. And so those will still be important, but I think the business profile and getting in that map pack is going to be really, really important.
What's the last clip, article, interview, or snippet that kind of changed what you're doing for your clients, and who said it?
I was listening recently to a podcast from they had the founder of Patch Marketing on, and he was talking a lot about sort of this local SEO and the move with AI. And one of the things he said was that Google is moving away from curation, where it just curated, 10 blue links for you to look at, and more into selection, where you're maybe asking Google's AI a couple of things. You're saying, hey, I've hurt my knee playing soccer on the weekend, or, doing whatever, and I'm looking for someone, blah, blah, blah. And rather than just curating 10 options, it's saying, hey, here's the best option, right? Here's the best clinic for you. And so it's kind of moving from curation to selection, which I thought was a really interesting framework. And it does seem like that's how things are moving towards.
What's your website? What are some of the resources you've put out recently? And if people want to connect with you and ask more questions about your strategy, your process, if they've got a business in your niche, how can they find you?
Our website is patientpartners.co, and we have a clinic marketing blueprint that people can download for free. We also offer a free website and SEO and AI visibility audit. And we'll show you exactly how your clinic is doing, or how your local business is doing right now, and what you can do to improve. And anybody that's listening is more than welcome to go request one of those audits.
Well, I'll be sure to add that to the show notes for everybody that's listening. This will go out on unscriptedseo.com with a full recap, where you can find other fantastic interviews like this one with other SEO professionals. Isaac, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Jeremy. Great chatting with you.